Billionaire mining magnate Clive Palmer is tonight considering resigning his membership of the Liberal National Party over a long-running war of words with Queensland's Premier. Mr Palmer's relationship with Campbell Newman sank to new lows earlier this month when he labelled the Deputy Premier and the Treasurer the biggest crooks to have occupied office. The party has suspended Mr Palmer and will tomorrow consider whether to expel him. Matt Wordsworth reports.
Hello, Matt.
Nice to meet you again, Mr Palmer.
Good to see you.
It's not unusual for Clive Palmer to be in the spotlight and a political minefield, but he's taken on some powerful enemies, his party's leadership. Mr Palmer, have you gone too far this time?
Oh no, I don't think it's a question of that. I'm really not the issue. The issue are the things and the things that are happening in this state, and I've raised them. It's really a question for people to address the issues, but they don't want to do that. They want to attack me personally about my rights as a citizen to raise matters of great concern for the community.
Clive Palmer's falling out with the Premier is a stunning turnaround. He's been a warrior for the LNP since the days of Sir Joe.
And God bless Queensland!
And the change has been rapid. Just 8 months ago, on election night, he was ecstatic.
All Queenslanders know that I love Campbell Newman, I love his family, I admire his wife, I think it's fantastic.
But his elation soon soured when the new government started making decisions he didn't like. In June, the Deputy Premier knocked back his proposal for a railway line to exploit a coal mine in the Galilee Basin and instead granted approval to a rival consortium. A lot of your concerns came after this June 6 decision, which affected your personal financial matters.
Well, that's not true. I had concerns before, but I didn't raise them. I thought that I've given people the benefit of the doubt, you know. It's only when you have a personal impact that you understand what's happening here.
Since June, he has sided with the public sector unions over job cuts, standing in front of anti-Newman signs. The Deputy Premier fired back immediately.
This is all about a spoilt billionaire that hasn't been able to get his way with our government.
In September, the Newman government announced an increase in coal royalties, and Mr Palmer, who's in the process of developing a coal mine in the Galilee Basin, stepped up his campaign against Mr Newman's public service job cuts.
Well, I'd be very surprised if he sticks to this policy. There'll be Premier by Christmas, to be honest with you.
He then lashed out at the Deputy Premier and the Treasurer, Tim Nicholls, about the state of the budget.
These books have been cooked by the biggest crooks that have ever occupied office in the state of Queensland.
It was at this point the LNP suspended his membership, with a disciplinary hearing planned for tomorrow. But Mr Palmer is considering resigning first.
Well, I'll discuss it with my wife when she finishes work later on tonight and see what she thinks, you know. But, you know, I've done the best I can as an individual at this time to say what's wrong.
The ongoing battle with the Premier and his Deputy and Treasurer has revealed a power struggle at the highest levels of the party. Mr Palmer is a close friend of President Bruce McIver. Mr McIver is a director of one of Mr Palmer's companies, and insiders believe Mr McIver has been sanctioning Palmer's attacks on the party leadership. In responding to the latest outburst, the Premier alluded to the friendship.
He won't get special favours. Just because he has a special relationship with senior people in the LNP, senior office bearers.
Mr Palmer worked together with Bruce McIver at the Federal Liberal Party conference in June to push for a ban on lobbyists holding positions in the party. The move was seen as an attack on their Queensland factional enemy, Santo Santoro, a Federal Liberal Party Vice President.
Some people would say that I was the focus of that motion, but look, my view is that everybody in that political party and just about everybody in the community is a lobbyist. I am far more open to scrutiny, as are all my other colleagues in the lobbying profession, than say what somebody like, you know, Mr Palmer is, or many others who aren't on lobbyist registers, who quite frankly should be on lobbyist registers.
Those against the motion.
The push to ban lobbyists failed, and they were criticised for engaging in factional warfare.
I've seen this cycle in New South Wales and elsewhere. One group gets on top, it starts punching up the other side, tries to kick them out. You never win like that.
The brawl escalated when the state director of the LNP passed a dossier of information to police, which included complaints about Santo Santoro. Nothing came of it, but he's not happy with his treatment.
There was never anything in that file that should have given anybody any reason to refer it to the police without first affording me natural justice, due process and an ability and an opportunity to just explain it. But look, you know, they did it, you know, for whatever reason, maybe out of an abundance of caution, but I believe that natural justice was denied, and I think it's a pretty sad state of affairs when that happens.
But fair dinkum, not worthy of this sort of rant, this sort of rubbish.
Gary Hardgrave was kicked out of the party last year. The former Howard government minister is now a radio announcer and had been critical of Mr McIver. He says there's a battle for control.
Well, the biggest faction is the Bruce McIver faction. He has put people around him who say, yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir, how high, sir? And I think in time could actually hurt Campbell Newman's prospect of staying in power for a while.
The LNP's state MPs last week launched a concerted move to reduce Mr McIver's power. The party room unanimously agreed to redirect taxpayer funding from the organisation's executive to each campaign committee, with legislation to be drawn up soon. They also demanded the party organisation re-endorse all sitting MPs. The move would take away the president's 2 most significant areas of influence: campaign funding and pre-selections. The ABC understands there are also moves to roll Mr McIver at the next annual conference.
Well, Campbell Newman has to win this battle, and Bruce McIver and the people around him have to go. It has reached a point now where this incompetence, this inconsistency and this inexperience has to go. These people have to make way for a broader range of people to be involved in the way this party operates, or else the party's medium and long-term future is fairly bleak.
If Mr Palmer stays on, the pressure falls back on Mr McIver over how to manage a major donor who refuses to back down.
There's still time for the Premier, for Jeff Senior and for Tim Nichols to correct their errors and get the government on the right track, and that's what they should do.